All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're just going to give about 1 more minute to let everyone get settled before we get started. Alrighty. Welcome, agents. We are excited to have you here with us today. Today, we are joined by Ryan Long, President of National Gold Consultants. With almost 20 years of experience in the investment industry, Ryan embodies the very essence of a family legacy, carrying forward a tradition of excellence and integrity. Ryan has assisted countless advisors in securing financial futures for their clients by harnessing the power of gold and silver. Having facilitated the transition of hundreds of millions of assets into these precious metals, Ryan's impact reverberates through the industry. National Gold Consultants distinguishes itself as one of the few licensed, regulated, and bonded wholesale companies in the nation, offering gold and silver solutions through extensive advisor networks. Ryan, I'll let you take it away.
All righty. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for all of you that are attending right now. I know there's a lot vying for your time. So I do appreciate that. I will keep it fairly brief and fairly short. And I know at the end here, I'm kind of a call to action of what's next, but also we'll also end with some Q&A as well. So if you're not alone out there as advisors, I mean, gold and silver is all over in the headlines. So the main premise of this webinar is to give you a general knowledge of how to talk to your clients about this. But we do have our on-demand advisor training, which I'll point you to, which will get you a lot more information, so you can have an authority in front of your clients. Because if we're being honest right now, with gold and silver all over the news, gold seeking all-time highs almost on a daily basis right now. Your clients are seeing this. You're seeing this. It's one of those things. Clients, if they're not asking you, they're going somewhere else. That's what we're trying to avoid. So might as well, what's one of those things? Why don't they get it from you? One thing I do like to cover is, if you are insurance only on this webinar right now, there isn't any extra licensing that is required for this. This is a complete, it's not a security. You're dealing with a tangible asset here that your clients are going to physically possess. So it's not a security that you need an extra license for. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna be brief, but real quick. I could spend probably the next hour on this slide alone. I always like to say we call it the 10 economic storms. I could put 100 economic storms on there right now. But real quick, with just the brief 10 of them right now that your clients are searching for, you're seeing this as well. We have a reserve currency threat with the BRICS nations overseas. Obviously, what's on the back of clients' minds? Inflation, especially when you're dealing with that fixed budget. Your dollar's purchasing power is obviously dwindling. Rising taxes, our budget deficit. We have supply chain issues, especially with some of the wars that are happening in the seas right now. Immigration, border control, crypto, digital, Russia, China, Israel, Iran. I mean, the list goes on. I say this not as this doomsday type of approach. It's more of one of those opportunities of what this means for you as an agent. Well, I mean, if you look at where we are right now, and we're marketing to existing clients, servicing clients. It's one of those things, ever since 2020, things have really rapidly changed. And this is one of those things that there's so much uncertainty that's out there as advisors, as clients. You're seeing inflation, you're having an election year, and that's where gold and silver is this hot topic button, for clients right now. Okay. So when we mention gold and silver, we're not looking at this as a substitution to what you're already doing. You might be covering, all of us on here are obviously doing FIAs and life insurance, with the high interest rate environment that we're in right now. Well, a fixed product, very easy conversation to have. With that said, those clients that are searching for that fixed product, this is a hand in glove mentality here of how gold and silver in place. It's another one of those safeguards, protecting purchasing power, protecting premium, your investments, and you're protecting your assets. I'll go in a little further of how this is implemented inside of one's portfolio, but I just wanted to get this out of the way here, that this is not a substitution. This is not head for the hills, head for the Smoky Mountains, and bury our head in the sands for doomsday and put our proverbial tinfoil hat on our heads here. This is a solid asset class that your clients are indeed searching for. One more thing I wanted to get out of the way here is what's in it for you. Well, this isn't a get rich quick scheme. We work with countless advisors. Our network is a little over 1,500 financial advisors and insurance professionals. I know in introduction, as far as licensed and regulated source, I mean, we are a wholesale licensed regulated source. I call ourselves a glorified IMO, but for gold and silver. We're in the trenches with you to help you out. With that said, you have to get paid for your time. And time is money, right? This isn't a get rich quick scheme. This is an addition to what you already want to do. So I wanted to get this out of the way. 4% for non-qualified, 3% for qualified. Okay. So moving into what we really do and kind of the whole framework of what we do. And we can talk about all day long about different types of metal, different types of asset classes inside of the precious metals arena. But before I do that, I really want to talk about why we want to have physical metal versus the ETFs that are out there. And clients obviously, are searching for this stuff. If you are an advisor, maybe you have your 65, maybe you're doing some assets under management. Obviously the largest ETF that's out there is GLD and SLV. Well, if you actually dig deep into the gold traded funds and the silver traded funds and dig deep into the prospectuses that they have, the ETFs are highly leveraged. And a lot of the times, the metal that's a part of this fund isn't even owned by the fund; it's leased out. So when I say highly leveraged, the inside of the prospectuses, they're anywhere leveraged from 300 to 600 times to 1. So when we're talking an ETF versus physical, an ETF is a great short-term play when you're looking to try to be speculative, but it's not the long-term play. Physical gold and silver. The example I like to give, it's the example of the Titanic. If my wife and I were to head down to Miami, it's about 3 hours south of where I am right now. Head to the cruise ship. It happens to be the Titanic, and the crew member shakes my hand and says, "Hey Ryan, I've got two options for you. The first one is the life preserver that you can put around your neck right now, knowing the history of the Titanic, or I can give you a certificate saying you own this life preserver. Which one would you take?" Well, obviously that's pretty rhetorical of which one I would take, but the obvious answer is it's the old proverb, possession is 9/10 of the law. Your clients are not searching for an ETF. They're looking for physical possession. They're looking for the real metal that they own and they stake claim to. Brief graphic inside of this slide. It has a little picture of $100,000 of gold, just to kind of give a background here. $100,000 of gold. I mean, it's essentially 2 index fingers worth of volume. And a lot of biases people have is, where in the world are my clients going to put this product? Well, even $100,000 of silver are two small shoeboxes full. So we're not talking about backing up that Brinks truck and having this major storage issue. I also like to get that out of the way because we like to say it's little mind monsters that advisors might have or clients might have that really isn't accurate. Okay. So moving forward, before I do a fast kind of micro approach on how gold and silver works and fits inside of one's individual portfolio, I want to give a little background about my organization and my company. This picture is actually our brick and mortar. We're actually based out of central Minnesota, and that's where the majority of our operations come from. You can hear that as a Minnesotan myself that is not native to Florida, but I do reside in Florida. You can still hear my accent. But I do like to cover, why my organization over something else. Well, the reality is there isn't somebody else that's like us. There are no other companies that are licensed and regulated like we are that works exclusively with financial advisors and insurance professionals. Every other access your clients have access to would be the retail space. Countless times I have seen, numerous transactions that have occurred. An advisor will sit down with their client, call it an annual review. And the advisor or the client goes, "Yeah, I also just bought this block of gold and silver as well." Well, obviously, we want to make sure we're trying to avoid that when your clients are sent to the talking heads on TV, those advertisements, et cetera. It's a fast way to turn hypothetical $100,000 into $50,000. It's real sad. We see this on a weekly basis. So that is what we're trying to avoid here. It's a matter of, if it's not you bringing it up to your clients, then who is? If they haven't asked you about it, they're not going to. They're going to think you don't do it. So by working with us and our licensed source, we've gone through countless audits with our advisors, our RIAs that we work with, through FINRA, through SEC, and because of the practice that we have for the product offering we have, the compensation level, which is extremely fair, you're not going to find a better price that's out there. We pass through these audits with flying colors. Brief history of how this works and the family legacy that I'm carrying on is my father was in gold and silver prior to me. He's retired 15 plus years ago now. And my mother was a jeweler for 30 years. I sunk my teeth 20 years ago into the retail space of gold and silver. We were consumer driven, consumer based. And the main objection that we had was, well, I need to talk to my financial advisor. Or, another objection was, yeah, that all sounds good, but maybe I'm only going to do $5,000 or something like that. And that's where the light bulb kicked on. And when we talk about physical gold and silver, it needs to be the proper allocation as far as the right amount of percentage. And, we want to make sure we're avoiding a hobby, a collection. We want to solve what we call wealth insurance. And that's where roughly about 20 years ago now, we started exclusively working with advisors. We have a network of 1,500 plus individuals all throughout the country and in all 50 states. And we'd love to be able to partner with you as well to be able to offer this solution to your clients. This story of National Gold Consultants, the history that we have, the licensing that we have, it's one of those things. The due diligence is already in play. It's a very attractive thing to clients because they don't know where to go to. They don't know who to talk to. They hear about these scams, they hear about these things, and they don't want to get ripped off, but they know you as the trusted advisor of them already. When you can use this story and utilize the history that we have, it's extremely, extremely attractive to clients. So I'm gonna move forward and really talk about some of the macro side of things of the premise of why gold and silver is extremely important now, where we've been and kind of where we're going into the future here. But also I'm going to talk about how gold and silver plays an inverse role to all of our other dollar-based assets that we have. But moving forward, this is one of my favorite illustrations that we like to give. Framework of this is prior to 1971. We had President Nixon was our president at that time in 71, and he got us off of the United States gold standard. So what does that mean? Well, prior to 1971, you could interchange this guy's credit card with a debit card. Okay. Before we got off the gold standard, we had to operate our national budget and spending similar to how consumers like you and I are. You really can't spend any more money than you don't have. Or if you don't have the gold and the silver to back up the currency of what you're spending, you can't spend. That's that whole debit card mentality. But when Nixon got us off the gold standard in 71, he transferred that debit card mentality into this credit card mentality. And all that's changed now is we can continue to print money. We can continue to print currency, raise our M2 money supply without any, consequences behind the scenes. They did not have to back more gold and more silver for that. And that's kind of the problem and the issue that we're at hands right now. And here we are in 2024. But what led to where we are right now is the acceleration of the monetary supply and the printing that the government did. So we all remember the 2008 crash. And when I'm talking to my clients, I always like to say, yeah, I remember when everybody's 401k turned into a 201k, right? During that time, the Federal Reserve printed $3 trillion over 5+ years, which at that time was absolutely unheard of. Well, fast forward to 2020, March of 2020, we all remember that when everything shut down and the lockdowns and with COVID, they printed that same $3 trillion, but over 3 months instead of 5 years. So it was unprecedented then, in 2008. Well, in 2020, printing that $3 trillion in 3 months was just gasoline on the fire. So where does that lead us? Well, the total national debt, and I had this slide updated, and I don't know why that's not updated on here. I do apologize. The national debt actually, as of yesterday, when I updated the slide, is actually over $36 trillion. And this slide was actually printed in 2021. And so over just the last few years, we've almost raised another $10 trillion of national debt. This is what's accelerating. But the reason why I wanted to bring this illustration here for you is the small little circle on the bottom of your screen. It's the debt to GDP. So what that means is how much money is coming in from revenue and how much money is flowing out as expenditures. If as a consumer, if we were only bringing in $100 every month and we had to spend $130 every month, things wouldn't last very long, would it? Well, that is how our government is currently operating. It's operated on that large of a debt to GDP. Now, fast forward to the projections in 2025. They're projecting the national debt of nearly $50 trillion and our debt to GDP almost 190%. So just in those few short years, you're seeing the debt to GDP of 130% to 190%. That is, I mean, one of those things that it's not sustainable. So, and I'm not bringing this to your attention to say that we need to head for the hills, like I mentioned, or to put some tinfoil hats and start talking conspiracy theories to you. This is just economic data that we need to be aware of, especially when we're talking to our clients. And when we talk to our clients, it's as simple as, hey, with the recent deficit that our government has, with the current inflation environment that we're in, I wanted to talk to you about a simple solution that can help combat some of this inflation. Schedule a quick 5 to 10 minute meeting with our office. That's as simple as that conversation is to introduce this to your clients. But before you're able to introduce this to your clients, you need to know how gold and silver actually works from a macro standpoint. So when I discuss here, there are 3 asset classes that act as an inverse to gold and silver. Well, when something is an inverse, I always like to bring up, it's kind of like a seesaw mentality. When something's inverse, that doesn't mean we should have one thing or another. That should mean we should have all of the above. That's just common financial sense. So when we talk about this inverse relationship that it has, well, what is this inverse? What does it have an inverse relationship to? Well, everything that your clients and yourself, for that matter, are already into is all based upon our US dollar. Whether that is our, whether your assets are in the markets, even a fixed product like an annuity, life insurance, real estate, any equities in the markets, all solely based upon our dollar. And physical gold and silver plays an inverse role to all 3 of those types of asset classes. So when we saw the crash of 2008, even March of 2020, physical gold and silver obviously did extremely well during that time because those dollar-based assets declined substantially. Okay, so when we look at the devaluation of our dollar, I like to say our dollar actually was created in 1913 from the Federal Reserve. So when we unpack what the Federal Reserve has done for us, most individuals are not aware. 1913, the creation of the Federal Reserve. Well, the Federal Reserve is not a government entity. They're actually a private entity and acts in their own best interest. So in 1913, I always like to say that is when your dollar was really valued at $1. Fast forward to where we are here in end of April of 2024. Well, our dollar actually has lost 98.5% of our purchasing power, which is a pretty sobering thought to think about. And that is where, again, that gold and silver plays that inverse role. There's a reason why we continue to see all-time highs for gold and silver. Okay, so a real life couple examples here about preserving purchasing power. Well, if you go back, years ago and look at this iconic Mustang example, and we're going to call it, that Mustang was roughly, we're going to call that in the 60s. Okay. 60s, I'm going to use round numbers. That Mustang cost around $3,000. Okay. Now, if you were to buy that exact same Mustang, just as of a few years ago, and I'm using the iconic Mach 1 Mustang, a brand new Mustang in 2021 would run you about $58,000. Today, that same Mustang is around $75,000. Okay, if we would have held our money, which was back in that time, back in the the 60s, was still backed by gold and silver. Okay, if we would have held the same amount of silver back then, well, that same silver today is worth roughly about $80,000. Okay, still buys you that same 2024 Mustang example. It's one of those things. It's not your it's not that you're getting more goods and services. It just means it costs more dollars to acquire the exact same product. Okay. The most common example I like to use when we're looking to preserve our purchasing power inside with precious metals is as simple as the gasoline example. And I picked 2020 out of it because we had some large spikes in gas prices during that time, during COVID. 1950, my silver dollar at that time was worth approximately 10 gallons of gasoline. Okay. In 2020, when we had some major spikes, my same silver dollar was worth 10 gallons of appropriate price of gallons of gasoline. Where are we today? Well, nationwide average is roughly 360 per gallon and rising. Well, the cost of a silver dollar today is literally $35. So you're using this example of what buys you today. You know, I know I'm using silver. Gold is interchangeable. What buys you today in silver and gold will buy you tomorrow in silver and gold. And that example that I give is very attractive to clients. It's a very much so a layman's type approach of realistically what gold and silver does. Not another one of those, hey, I'm going to get uber wealthy off of this. But it's again that hand in glove for those risk off type clients that want to preserve purchasing power and do not want to take major historical risks. So that's the inverse relationship to just how our dollar works and how inflation happens and erodes. It's that silent killer we have zero control over, and the Federal Reserve happens to not be a government entity and does not have to act on your best interest. So it's just those little nuggets that a lot of individuals are not aware of. But when we move forward here to the comparison of real estate compared to gold, and I have data going back 100 plus years. And real estate and gold and silver, it's that seesaw mentality. They trade places quite often. Going back the last 100 years, they've traded places, I think 17 or 18 times. So what I mean by trading places, the 2008 example, when we had this real estate crash, well, we have your real estate fund is in green during that time, and gold is in red during that time. You can see that inverse approach that does. And then moving forward here into our equity markets, I can show you here. I mean, this is the last, call it the last 20, 25 years comparing the Dow Jones to gold. Well, hey, they both have gone up. In this slide, it obviously poses that gold has absolutely crushed and outperformed the Dow. Well, this is the last 20 year look. If I was to do a 30-year look, they would actually trade places. The Dow did extremely well over the last 30 years. And if I do the last 10 years, they've actually both been in unison and moving up. Again, going back to when an asset class has an inverse relationship to another, that doesn't, again, mean we want one or the other. We want participation in both, right? So that's where it comes down to when we're comparing all of these things. Again, we're not trying to substitute something here. We're just adding on to an additional percentage your clients should have here, and they should have participation in both. So when you put it all together, and you have this overall wealth insurance type mentality, the question we get often is, well, how much should a client actually do? And this is where, as an advisor, this is where you need to be that leader for your client. You can't leave it up to your client to say, hey, what are your thoughts? And the client agrees. And once they understand the idea and how gold and silver works, everybody gets it. Everybody understands it. But leaving up to how much should I do to your client is really not going to help them and do them any favors, because you're always going to get that client that has that, oh, I've got this $10,000 that it's in my checking account I haven't done anything with in ages. I'll do that. Well, the example I give is, if you have that cliche $500,000 house and it's only insured through State Farm for $50,000, doesn't even make sense to have insurance at that point. Why even have it? So in this case, it has to be enough to make a difference, or don't do it all, or don't do it at all. Excuse me. So what is that overall wealth insurance level you should have? We're targeting 10 to 15%. 10 to 15% is that overall, if you have that cliche, again, $1 million client, you should be targeting $100,000, maybe $150,000 into physical metal. And we look at this as, you want to get as much non-qualified as possible. Non-qualified, your clients are going to physically possess it, and we actually ship it to your client. Qualified, we do gold and silver IRAs all of the time. But how IRS looks at it is it needs to be at arm's length, meaning your clients cannot physically possess it. It's got to be stored for them, which we have that already all set up for you anyways. So when you're looking at that 10 to 15% case, we get asked this question often is, well, what's the average size case you guys handle? Well, our average, rolling over the last 12 months, our average case is about $167,000 per transaction, if that kind of gives you that idea in the back of your mind. So moving forward here, I'm going to give you a couple case studies of some actual personal clients of mine. And I want to kind of, again, it adds to everything that we're already doing here. So this client here, they're at exactly, as we took this screenshot, they were at exactly 10%. It didn't start at 10%. I think their first transaction inside of wealth insurance or gold and silver started at, I think, 50,000. And then we just grew that every so often. So you can see this client, it's well-rounded, they're the total assets are about a $2.6 million client of mine. We've got about, it's probably closer to $300,000 of metal now with the appreciations that has happened over the last few months. Now, this is all non-qualified for this client. They physically possess it all. It's in their possession. This is another client here that, the assets are a little less, but they're one of those, they're not favorable about the government. They have a very large pension. This is a retired airline pilot, so cash flow is just fine for this individual. And instead of that 10%, they wanted to jump all the way up to 25%. Well, this client, every asset they have is in qualified accounts. And we all know that, especially with the, retirement generation now, about 80 to 85% of assets that clients have are qualified. So we do gold and silver IRAs just like this. In this case, was 100% of the client's assets. So we can adjust accordingly with that. So looking at this, the macro side of things, it's one of those, where do we go from here? And what is the plan as an advisor? Well, the plan, you've got three steps here. First one is you've already completed this. You've already watched this webinar. The second one is purchase your quick start kit. Now, I didn't lead you for the last 30 minutes to all of a sudden say, sound like an infomercial to say, hey, you got to buy something here now. No, this is one of those things we tried to establish, how much we should charge for our quick start kit and our advisor training. And we just decided, hey, we got to do it at cost. And this is our cost associated with it. So here's what happens when you purchase this quick start kit. It starts a chain reaction that my office gets notified immediately. Again, remember, we called ourselves a glorified IMO, but for gold and silver. We have my full staff. I've got full marketers that'll be there with you, that'll be helping you, that'll be training you with you, that'll be getting on phone calls with you. We do it all. But when you go to Gold and Silver Advisors is plural.com, and the little blue box that says purchase your quick start kit, it starts that chain reaction. So here's what's inside the kit. Well, we've got, we'll give you access to on-demand videos. We have compliance approved clients videos that were just newly redone here in the last few months. The main reason for the cost is we're actually going to be sending you silver dollars so you can have in your possession. And when you're sitting down with your client, or maybe you're just doing something virtual, you can hold up your silver dollar and say, this is exactly what I'm talking about. When you have this tangible asset class and you literally can hand them the coin, I tell you what, the conversations change dramatically, right? I mean, I remember personally when an annuity used to be 3 paragraphs long, and now it's a small book. It's a lot harder to get a client excited about that now when they're having to initial 100 times and whatnot. This is the conversation immediately changes. The body language changes. They start to move forward and they're going, wow, this is Ryan. This is really neat. And it clicks for them. Okay. But in addition to this, you're going to have our platform of our downloads, white papers we brand to you, different materials we brand to you, and a link to our advisor podcast. Right now we've got, I think, 23 episodes that cover, it's more of a, in addition to this training we have, but why we do what we do, why we use, certain products the way we do. Okay. So I'm going to unpack real quick what this training looks like inside of it, and then we'll open it up to some Q&As, and we'll let you move on with your day here. But inside of our sections, this is our core section, training 1, and it really talks about, if it's not you as the advisor bringing it up, then who is? And I know I made mention of this, and I don't want to beat the dead horse on this, but in this environment we're in right now, that I like to say it's free advertisements for us for gold and silver. That's all. I mean, it's Fox News, CNN, you name it. Your clients are seeing this stuff. Your clients are seeing the advertisements. Make sure they're protected. If you're a licensed fiduciary, if you're just looking at it from a fiduciary standpoint, I interchange the word integrity. You need to let your clients know you have a source for this. Otherwise, it's very likely they do get sent off to the wolves and snake bitten. It's disheartening, but that's the fact of the matter. So we cover that in great detail, but also, how do we bring this up to our clients? A lot of the times it's using current events. Hey, with the current inflation environments, I want to talk to you about an opportunity here that we can help combat that. Give me a call. Simple as that. We also cover why this is wealth insurance versus investment. And the big thing here, when we're looking at this as wealth insurance compared to an investment, yes, gold and silver are going to continue to rise, and it's doing exactly what it's supposed to. When your product goes up the next 10 to 15%, hey, should we be selling? Well, no. There's a reason why it's doing what it's supposed to, and the more they print money, the more that the money supplies rise, and so does gold and silver. So we have to make sure we're not looking at this as an investment to have to track the values on a daily basis. That's not what this is for. And if you premise the idea with, this is a long-term hold, this is something that is your inflation adjuster inside of your portfolio, and do it that way, you're going to save yourself a lot of future conversations with your clients, obviously, because they don't have the largest details in the back of their mind. So core section 2, I did cover the macro side of it real quick on the inverse relationship that it has, but this goes into great detail. One thing I do want, why we don't use bars, why we don't use collectibles, why we use just the general circulated, we call them the pre-33 coins. Literally, we talk about one silver dollar and one fractional gold coin, all U.S. minted. They're not collectibles because they're circulated. It just checks all of the boxes off. We go into great detail in that I won't cover now. But to be honest with you, there's a large reason and a large process of why we do what we do. It has stood the test of time, of generations, and from a compliance standpoint, passes all of the compliance boxes. Okay. 2 more sections here to cover. This is your logistics that we cover in the training. Our typical order process for non-qualified is, you named it, or you guessed it, 1 page. It's very refreshing. I haven't changed it in 18 years. It just basically, it says, hey, where is it shipped to, who the advisor is, and how much they're looking to do. It's as simple as that. So how the process works for our back end office is we do call your clients the day before the product ships, make sure that the address is correct, and it's that simple. That's, as far as non-qualified is concerned, it is one of those very quick and very easy, shipped FedEx Express to your client, insured, and it's done with. We also cover the process for qualified. It's a little more cumbersome than non-qualified, but we're only talking a 6-page application there. Big thing I like to say is inside of this, we're partners with you. When we look at the glorified IMO, but for gold and silver, we jump on conference calls for you. In this environment we're in, if you wanted to host a gold and silver workshop, I know I used to fly all over the country years ago prior to COVID, and we'd have 100 plus clients in the room, and we would present for you. Now we do that from time to time, but we also do the virtual side of things, and it really provides that education to your client, but also to you. So we're there in the trenches with you to do that, to hop on those conference calls, and to make sure we provide you with the most information we can. Now, lastly is marketing. Well, I alluded to a little bit as well. Once you purchase that quick start kit, it's, we're going to give you email scripts. We're going to give you access to those webinars. We're going to be branding materials to you, and to make you look good in front of your clients here. So just an overview again, goldandsilveradvisors.com. That is a great resource. If you wanted to watch another recording of a similar webinar just like this, that's also on there as well. But this is where my office can reach out for you and get you going. So I'm gonna leave this up now. Emmy, if you're back, I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We do have some questions rolling in here. First one, who would be the ideal client to approach about gold and silver?
Yeah, great question. So in my humble opinion, it's pretty much everyone. Wealth is relative. When I give the average size ticket of $167,000, that's just a relative number. We've had clients that have literally won the mega millions, $88 million lottery in Arizona that they did 8.8 million. And we have clients that maybe only have $100,000 of assets and they did $10,000. So when you look at it, the example I give is everybody should have health insurance, right? And it's not because, today you have a clean bill of health. It's because if you fall and break your leg, or God forbid, something happens, other health related reasons, you have that for that very reason. Ideally, what we normally see is that retired base client that is looking at this as a, you have a income, you have your outflow. You want to make sure that they have enough assets to live off of, but especially in this inflation environment we're in, we want to make sure that their standard of living does not decline, and that's where that gold and silver, obviously, is that offsetting type asset for them, and that's how we do that, Emily.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then additionally, I know you mentioned that there were email scripts with that training program. Are there any other client-facing marketing materials?
Yeah. Yep. So, we've got everything from our advisor portal that we have. So we've got numerous marketing materials we can get in front of you as the advisor. That would be something my staff can easily get to you after this webinar.
Absolutely. Let's see. Is there a minimum or maximum premium, and does this change with qualified versus non-qualified funds?
Sure. As far as minimums are concerned, we very rarely even have this conversation, because when we're talking about a 10 to a 15% allocation, you're typically not, you're not really representing somebody that only has 50 grand worth of assets, right? With that said, we're never going to be, snubbing our nose at anyone. We're there to make you as the advisor look good. So we're not gonna have a minimum on that. With that said, just so in everybody's back of their minds, any order under $10,000, we typically lose money on. So because we have fixed expenses with shipping and insurance and all that. So keep that in the back of your mind. But as far as the minimums for non-qualified is concerned, the trust custodian we use, there's numerous out there that we have vetted, and we've exclusively used a trust custodian called Gold Star Trust for about the last decade or so. The reason why we use them is they actually have devoted representatives that only work with National Gold Consultants. So the service is much faster, and it's much easier to get things done and approved. But the largest reason why we use them is it doesn't matter if it's a $20,000 IRA or a $20 million IRA that we're moving into gold and silver. The fees are flat at $200 a year, which covers maintenance, IRS requirements, and also the storage of the metal. There's not a other trust custodian that is even close to those values. So that's that. So when you're looking at a minimum with that, keep that in mind. You wouldn't want to do, a $7,000 IRA because the fees just don't make sense. You'd want to have that, again, going back to that 10 to 15% level, you're typically not representing a $7,000 IRA.
Awesome. Got another handful of questions here. One I've seen a couple times is, how do you guarantee delivery, and how do you protect against porch pirates or people that may steal the mail?
I like that one. Porch pirates. We use FedEx Express exclusively. On the boxes, big yellow signature required stickers. Return label says custom tile and granite. So you're not going to have a curious FedEx worker. Okay. Now, with that said, we do have insurance on it. The FedEx guy is not going to be dropping it off on somebody's porch. It's almost like if you've ever, let's just say you've ever had to have a box of wine delivered, you need a 21 plus adult signature. They're not going to leave it on your front step. It doesn't work like that. The same applies towards these packages. But for those that want to know, every package is insured for the full value. It's underwritten by Lloyd's of London, so it's all safe. Knock on wood, I don't think we've lost a package in over 6 years, and we've shipped out hundreds of millions of dollars. So, yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
What licenses do I need to sell gold and silver?
We get that one a lot. So we like, if you're only insurance only, that's it. We work, we work exclusively with financial advisors. You mean that have all the titles and the commas after their name, that have all the licensing, but this is not a security. All you need is your insurance license to work with this. Now, those that, maybe you're an IAR under an RIA umbrella, or maybe you're with a broker dealer. This is just considered an outside business activity. It's as simple as that. If you are your own RIA, you just adjust your ADV Part 4 that says you facilitate physical gold and silver transactions and conversations, and it's that simple.
Excellent. Can the client sell the coins at the current gold rates? How do the clients sell and cash in the gold and silver coins?
Okay. So just like any insurance product, there is a surrender value, right? I call it a break even. So maybe it's a MIGA 3-year or a 5-year or 7-year type of product. Obviously you as the advisor gets paid, and there's a reason why there's a surrender charge for those types of products. In this case, it's as liquid as it comes. So this is like sending cash in the mail, hypothetically. So they could buy today and in turn sell it back today. Obviously, that'd be really wouldn't behoove you to do so. However, with that said, you have that 4% of non-qualified that comp's going to you. We try to run on approximately an 8% spread between a buy today and a sell today. Sometimes that's it's higher than that. Sometimes it's less than that, because we are holding all of the inventory in hand. If I have product that I purchased, 6 months ago that has done very well, I obviously make more money, but vice versa when things decline. So as far as cashing in that product, just like we send the product to them, there's only a finite amount of pre-1933 gold and silver coins that are out there. The elephant in the room is they don't make these coins anymore. So when a client wants to liquidate, we want them to send it back to us, because it makes our lives a lot easier, because we have product sourcing all over the country and all over the world for this, because all of the main players know what we do. When they're having a liquidation, they immediately send it to us. We have tens of thousands of clients that when life circumstance happens, well, yeah, they're going to have to send it back to us. And that's where we, if it's an ACH, it's same day, it's a same day funding to them that we can set up. Or if they don't, we send them a check in the mail. But just like we ship them the product, we explain of how to get it back to us. We've got a full liquidation team just designated for that. Yeah.
Awesome. So the clients can sell the coin back to you guys at any point.
Correct. Yep. And it's the current market rate at that time. I mean, if they were to buy today and sell it back to us tomorrow without the market moving, they're going to lose 8-9%. That's the fact of the matter. But again, when you're looking at this as that, we're trying to hold this as about a 5-year type hold and approach before you typically start to rebalance that. And I didn't just pick 5 years out of a hat. The average recession occurs every 6-7 years in our economy. So when we have recessionary type events, that's when historically, when the dust settles after that recession, that's when gold and silver are at peaks. So we start to reevaluate, maybe take some winners off of the table at that time to reevaluate. That 10 to 15% you purchased years prior might represent 30 to 40% now. Well, at that time, let's take some winners off the table, get back to that 10 to 15% and reallocate those dollars.
Excellent. We have a question. Can you briefly go over why pre-1933 coins? Is there a benefit to it?
Yeah, so that is in great detail in our advisor training. We also have a podcast episode exclusive to that one as well. A very fast approach is it checks all of the boxes off. The main box it checks off for me is the privacy. Okay. So when I mean privacy, if I was to go into Wells Fargo, hand them a dollar bill and say, I want 2 rolls of nickels, there's no questions asked, right? You're just converting your paper dollar into hard dollar in nickels, right? In this case, you're converting your digit in your bank account, whether that's a wire or a check, and you're buying physical gold and silver for it. The government views the pre-1933 coins as a private currency. Okay. So you still could go to Walmart right now and give them a silver dollar and spend it as a dollar. Well, I mean, there's $35 of value in this coin, so it wouldn't make sense to do so, but it's still considered legal tender and currency. So when your client is buying this product, and also when they liquidate this product, even at a higher rate, there isn't any reporting requirements that my organization has to do. It's completely anonymous and private. Now, I'm not saying that clients aren't supposed to pay their taxes on it. That what it turns into then is it turns into an honor system for your client as a self-reporting type mechanism. Okay. On top of that, a very fast couple more reasons is the genuineness of the coins. You cannot fake circulation. There's a lot of counterfeit out there in the hot off the press coins that are shiny right out of a mint, and bars as well. There's a lot of counterfeit for that. The other aspect of it is we also don't want to get into collectibles and caring about the dates of something or how shiny something is. So the pre-33 coins, between the privacy side of it, it performs better, and our training explains why, but also to make sure what you have is genuine is a very important thing.
Amazing. A couple more questions here before we're out of time for the day. What is the quality grade of the gold and silver?
Yeah, so that's a very retail type question. That if a client has maybe prior purchased from another dealer or just looked online, that is a retail kind of gotcha type of a thing. Unless it is graded. So when we're talking about grading, they're talking about a specific condition that it's in. Unless it's graded by a machine and it's objective, it's 100% subjective. So when we're talking just general circulated coins, the retail companies are going to charge you more for something that's shinier and be a little more in line with something that's less shiny. For us, because we've got tens of thousands of these coins in our vault that are just in tubes of 20, we don't sort out conditions whatsoever. So in a normal allocation, a client's going to receive, numerous years of silver dollars. Some are going to be shiny, some are going to be dirty. We're not buying it for how pretty some coin looks. That turns into that hobby type mentality. We're buying it for that wealth insurance and trying to get as many coins as our dollar allows within this arena. So that's, as far as conditions are concerned, that is a question that a client will ask if they have prior experience. But if you can have that in the back of your mind, that we're not caring about how shiny something is, we're not going to pay more for that. It doesn't make sense, because when you go to liquidate down the road, you're not going to get a whole lot more for something that's shinier than something that's a little dirtier.
Excellent. And then last question here is, could you please briefly discuss the sales tax on non-qualified purchases?
Yeah. So this has been kind of a unique topic over the last 10 years. Most states are starting to omit sales tax on gold and silver. That's been the largest trend. In fact, even Wisconsin repealed sales tax on gold and silver last month. There's only a small handful of states that collect sales tax anymore. I think it's 5. So it's very, very small. Minnesota is one of them, New Mexico, Hawaii. Stuff like that. We can't help it. We can't help where we live or where the product is being shipped to. But we've got, one of those things, if sales tax does apply, we obviously will be letting you know about it, and we do have to adjust our pricing accordingly based upon state laws. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today, Ryan. We super appreciate it. Remember, with partners like National Gold Consultants and NFI Solutions, your clients' financial success is within reach. If you have questions or need further guidance, don't hesitate to reach out to NFI Solutions at 952-887-1239. Stay empowered, stay informed, and may your journey be filled with prosperity. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, take care. Thank you so much.
Thanks.